Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 618, Monday, November 26th, 2018. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you had a good weekend. Back at it. Here's the latest news. Several hundred migrants attempted to rush the border at the San Ysidro port of entry in San Diego yesterday, that would be Sunday, but were held back with pepper spray, smoke, and tear gas. Yes, this was a planned thing. It was actually reported the day before that that's exactly what they were going to do. And if you look at the multiple video clips that are out there, I probably watched a half a dozen video clips, you will see that about 90% of these individuals are males. And they don't even look like they're coming from poor circumstances. They're literally wearing nice clothes. You know, they're not wearing, tattered clothes, ripped and torn. They don't look hungry. They don't look like they've been abused. They look healthy. They look clean. They look like they're wearing, good clothes and, all that sort of stuff. I mean, they don't look like your typical, refugees. Refugees generally are starving. They look like they've been abused or wearing tattered clothes. All these sorts of things. These literally look like an army of people from Latin America. They're just not wearing camis. This entire thing is a fiasco. Trump's doing the right thing. Because what is so important here is the message. If you get this wrong, and these people are successful in getting into this country, there'll be a never-ending stream of caravans heading toward the border. You've got to make sure you get this right and make sure that these people get rejected and turned around. Now, it's my understanding that the Mexican government, after this happened, had about 500 individuals that they've identified as being possible criminals or what have you, and they're already being processed to be deported back to where they came from. That's in Mexico. Despite the fact that the lamestream corporate media continues to dispute this fact. They continue to call this women and children, oppressed women and children from these horrible circumstances, being denied asylum, this whole 9 yards, when in fact the camera footage, the video footage shows a completely different story. They say, oh, there's, how can you dare call these people criminals? Well, because the intelligence community, reporters that have been down there in those with the caravans as they've been marching in this direction, along with the Mexican government, and common sense tells us that there's a lot of bad folks in that group. It's just amazing. I literally cannot believe how bad the corporate media is. But right on cue, and believe me, they've got a big plan. This is all worked out by the corporate media. They know exactly what they've created. They have a plan in place. I'm sure they've had multiple meetings. They've probably laid out entire narratives and plans for how they're going to cover the story to do the most possible damage that they can to Trump and the administration, or anyone who would question the common sense reality of what's actually going on here. Their narrative is a complete hoax, like everything else. And right on cue, as soon as these migrants, because they knew it was coming, so right on cue, after they rush the border and we deploy the tear gas and smoke grenades and things and such, right on cue, the criminal corporate media began their full spectrum propaganda campaign to create the victim narrative around the invaders. Right on cue. They had the narrative already ready to go. Despite the fact that as they're giving you the narrative, you're literally watching on video and seeing the complete opposite of what they're telling you. Women and children, I'm telling you, look at the video. It's about 90% men, young men, like not old men, not, like old men. We're talking like 17, 18, 20, early 20s, maybe early 30s. The majority of these people are young, healthy, well-fed, looking good, young Latino-type men from Central America. This entire thing is a hoax and just another one of the many plots purely designed as a political move, all part of the larger plot to destroy Trump and his ideas. Speaking of riots, the protest in Paris has entered into day 3. I'm sure many of you have seen some of these video shots where it's just like, you know, they're in Paris and you see the Eiffel Tower, and the shot that I was looking at was taken from probably half a mile away from the Eiffel Tower, and it is just literally solid. And I've been to the Eiffel Tower 2 times. I know exactly what, you know, street this is that they're looking at taking this shot. They're obviously in a building looking down on the crowd and looking into the distance at the Eiffel Tower. It's about a half to maybe 3/4 of a mile from where they are to the Eiffel Tower, and it's just packed with people. Absolutely packed. There's got to be, I don't know, maybe 100,000 people. Could be more. Some media reports are that there were 300,000 in the general area of Paris on Saturday. And on Sunday, of course, maybe lighter numbers in Paris itself, but now we have these things springing up all over various other parts of France. So it continues on, and they are essentially growing larger. The French media is describing the clash between the protesters and the police as violent. Yes, it is. And the French do not know, and of course the French do know how to riot, by the way, as many of you know from history. One thing that the French can do, I understand they make some pretty good wine and cheese. I'm not a big wine drinker. I do like cheese, but I don't recall if I ever had any when I was in France. Had a lot of cheese in Germany. They do pretty well at it. One thing the French do know how to do is riot. They do know how to riot. No question about that. But what you see, again, because we are talking about a globalist world order, and I think that I'll be getting to this later in the video, but you hear the Soros people, and occasionally Soros himself, describe this purple revolution. And you keep seeing certain individuals who like to show up wearing purple. Remember the day after the rotten Reverend Clinton lost the 2016 election, she showed up wearing a purple suit, and Slick Willie was wearing his purple tie. And you keep seeing these people wearing this purple, and Soros is describing this as a purple revolution. And what he's talking about, this is a globalist. This is an attempt to put down the global movement against global socialism and the New World Order, which is manifests itself as a populist, nationalist type movement. Okay, so this needs to be, it's important that we have this in our minds as we talk about all these events that are happening, not just here in the U.S., the migrant crisis, what's happening in Europe. It's all connected. It's all a part of the same operation. It is a political operation being run on all of us. And we can see it here when we look at the media reports coming out of the corporate whore media in France, because they are now blaming Marine Le Pen for fomenting the protest. And the government media, the government and the media, one and the same in France, just as it is most other places in Europe, and to a large extent even everywhere in the West, they are describing the protesters as ultra-right. Ultra-right. We see the exact same thing when we see how the media covers these battles that take place almost every weekend between Antifa and the Proud Boys. You know, they flip the script completely and try to tell you that the Proud Boys are a bunch of right-wing fanatics, and that the Antifa are people who are opposed to fascism. You see, so this is, and then they, after demonizing the freedom lover, the patriot, demonizing, making them the bad guy, then they associate them with whatever politician or political movement they want to destroy. Whether it's Marine Le Pen, Donald Trump, Mr. Orban, it doesn't really matter. It's all part of the same larger globalist plot. But I think you all know that. Most of you anyway. Certainly my subscribers, if you're just someone who popped in and, watching my video for the first time, what I just told you is nothing new to the people who subscribe to my channel. Okay? We talk about this stuff all the time. My commenters many times inform me of these things or leave links for me, which I learn about these things. We share information on this channel. I can't do it all. So if you're someone who just popped in and just hearing this for the first time and you're a little bit alarmed, welcome to the club, because we are alarmed every day at the things that I have to talk about on this video. The judge has rejected Papadopoulos' requests for delay in his prison sentence, and he will report to jail today, Monday. And I believe Wisconsin is where he's going to do his 14 days. Fact is, he's going to be in a minimum security prison. It's a 14-day sentence. It'll take him 2 days to be processed in, 2 days to be processed out. There's 4 days gone right there. He'll spend 10 days sitting on a chair watching, probably what they'll do to punish him is force CNN on them. It's probably what they got playing in the prison. They probably don't allow you to change the channel. They probably put it on CNN, and that's part of your punishment. Papadopoulos is going to have to watch CNN 24 hours a day for 10 days as a form of punishment. Again, I'm not really... this didn't surprise me. I told you that the judge wouldn't overturn this because of the way this all happened. He pleaded guilty, and he pleaded guilty to lying. He essentially did either... He certainly gave the FBI false information. He either lied or got wrong the dates about which he met Misfit or had contact with Misfit. We've seen the transcripts. So, we know that he did not tell the truth for whatever reason to Mueller or the FBI, in fact, when they asked him when he had contact with Misfit. Now, as I said before, it's actually, I don't know that it was a great legal move for Papadopoulos to challenge that anyway, because, if the judge had said, okay, yeah, we're going to go ahead and go with you, Papadopoulos. No, you're not going to have to serve, and we're going to wipe this whole thing away. The whole sentencing, it goes away. Uncle Bob would simply retry Papadopoulos, and there's no question that Papadopoulos lied about, when he met with Misfit, in which case Mueller could, or the FBI or the DOJ could throw the whole book at Papadopoulos, which I think he could get up to a year and a $20,000 fine. So he could actually end up much worse off. He probably, like I said, should help his case to go ahead and do the time and then immediately afterwards file a civil lawsuit against the government and present his evidence. And there's plenty of it out there. There's another case going on right now, as we talked about. And, of course, what we need to happen is to expose the entire Spygate fraud. That's what we really need. That's what Pops needs. But he can help. He needs to testify publicly. And that needs to happen soon. For some reason, it is not. The very first thing he does when he gets out of jail is to file a civil lawsuit and then go address Congress. They need to have... I don't know why the Republicans don't do this. They control those committees in the House right now. Why they don't just have one big open hearing for 2 or 3 days and bring in everybody in front of the cameras. Papadopoulos, Caputo, Michael Flynn. Bring in every damn one of them that had agent provocateurs trying to set them up and let them tell their story. That would be a really important thing to do. They need to get this in front of the cameras. Everything's being done behind the cameras. So nobody's learning anything. I mean, they're really handling this very badly. They squandered away 2 years. And now they've lost the House and the investigation. Not very impressed. Not very impressed. Russian Navy ships have opened fire on some Ukrainian ships. This occurred on Sunday, and they've captured 3 vessels. No deaths were reported. However, there's a couple of injuries on the Ukrainian side, appear to be minor. Ukraine is expected to declare martial law as a result of this. Russia says that they opened fire after Ukrainian ships refused to stop for inspection. And after, according to Russia, the ships had illegally crossed the border. And I think they're talking about the border into what will be Crimea, because this is all occurring in the Black Sea. So I assume they're talking about that area where essentially you're in, I guess, within, 25 miles of Crimea, which means you'd be within their territorial waters, and I assume that that's where this is all occurring. And the Russians, of course, say that they've got the video footage and they'll take their case to the UN and prove that they were authorized to fire on these Ukrainian ships who refused to be boarded for inspection. We will find out how that turns out, I'm sure, but you can expect massive backlash, media backlash, and a propaganda story against the Russians for this, and Putin specifically will be targeted, and he knows it, and I don't think he gives a damn. While we're on the topic of protest again today in Iran. This will be the second day now that this began on Saturday, and this time it's the steel workers in Iran who are protesting. They're angry because they literally have not been paid in months, but they're forced to work, yet they're not being paid for months, according to what's being reported. The protesters are calling for the death of the mullahs. They're calling for death to the mullahs, and they want the regime to go. Corey Stewart, a state senator from Virginia, appeared on CNN on Sunday and told the CIA asset Anderson Cooper that Jamal Khashoggi was a bad guy, a bad actor, bad character. Stewart said there are reports that Khashoggi was connected to the Muslim Brotherhood and Osama bin Laden. Khashoggi was not a U.S. citizen or even a green card holder. He was visiting the U.S. on a visa. Well, I said this from day one. I mean, Khashoggi's name has been coming up for years. I mean, going all the way back to the late 70s, I mean, in the Carter administration. But in the 90s, when the Mujahideen was operating in Afghanistan, Khashoggi was there. He lived there. He met with and associated with Osama bin Laden, also a CIA asset. On multiple occasions, there are photographs of Khashoggi with the Mujahideen fighters with the damn shoulder-fired rocket launcher hanging strapped over his shoulder. Slinged. He's got a sling with the shoulder-fired rocket launcher, and he's standing there with about 4 or 5 of these fighters. And this was back during what? The right before 9/11, I think, when he was there with the Mujahideen. So, yeah, Khashoggi has had a long and deep relationship with anti-Western, pro-Muslim groups, rebels, fighters. Some will call them terrorists, however you want to label them. How you want to label the Mujahideen. I mean, they were freedom fighters back in the 70s. And again in the 80s, and then in the 90s or the 2000s, they become terrorists. Take your pick. When they're working for the CIA, they're freedom fighters. When the CIA decides to flip the script and say, okay, well, they're actually the bad guys, then they become the terrorists. You know, you take your pick on what decade that you want to look at to know who these people are. Khashoggi, back in the 70s and the 90s, would have been looked at as an ally. But in the 2000s, he would have been looked at and probably by the Bush administration, would have been looked at as a terrorist or associating with terrorists. Now all of a sudden he's this poor little journalist who got murdered. No, this guy was a bad actor from day one, and I told you that when this story broke. This guy's all about. Been hearing his name for years. Sherrod Brown. Trump's phony populism is anti-Semitic and racist. Of course, Sherrod Brown, the senator here unfortunately from Ohio, is going to be running for president. He is probably the closest he is a Hillary Clinton surrogate. He is the closest thing to the Rotten Reverend Clinton you will get. And if the Rotten Reverend Clinton, once she probably gets embarrassed, she is going to run in some way, form, or fashion. She's going to try. I don't believe she'll be successful, but her surrogate will be Sherrod Brown. That's where her money will go. That's where her support will go. That's where all the big push will go. Sherrod Brown is nothing more than literally a puppet for the Rotten Reverend Clinton. I mean, she is totally, he's a finger puppet. And the Rotten Reverend Clinton runs him. I can assure you of that. Everything he says is a talking point fed to him, probably emailed directly to him from the Rotten Reverend Clinton. Trump's phony populism is anti-Semitic. Imagine that. Trying to label Trump as anti-Semitic with all that he's done on behalf of the Israelis. His daughter's converted to Judaism, which means that his grandkids are Jews. His daughter's a Jew. I mean, this is just insanity. Just absolute insanity. Racist? Not a racist bone in the man's body. Unbelievable, man. Well, the EU is celebrating and boasting about the bogus Brexit agreement, as it now looks like that the sham Brexit deal will be ratified. Will be ratified. That's what it's looking like now. I could be wrong, but the European Union is celebrating. They're happy, happy, happy. And Theresa May is off to the UK Parliament, I think, this week to begin preparations for the wording and the language and the documents to make that happen for the ratification of this so-called Brexit, which is not a non-Brexit. It's no Brexit at all. No Brexit at all. The citizens of the UK have been F-U-C-T. Right in the bunghole. They voted for Brexit. What did they get? It's just like I said. The European Union is like the Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave. And that's why they want to build a European army, which Macron is a big supporter of. You wonder why? You see, as one of my commenters said in a previous post on a previous video, from day one they never had any intention of actually having Brexit. They were never going to do it in the first place. And this just shows you, how hard it is. And keep in mind, Britain doesn't even use the euro. I imagine you couldn't use the euro, but they never gave up their currency. All these countries that actually gave up their currencies, that's why they can't get out. Because the European Union just says, okay, well, I'll tell you what. You go ahead and start working on that. And tomorrow morning when you wake up and your banks have no money in them, and your country erupts in massive riots because there's no money available, no money in anyone's accounts, no money in any of your banks, we'll see how long you last. They can't do that to the Brits, so they do it another way. It's absolutely disgusting and disturbing, and quite honestly, short of absolute mass rioting, and even that won't work. They'll just put it down. I don't know where you go from here, my friends, in the UK. You see the problem? Do you see the problem? This is all going to lead to something very, very bloody and very ugly. I don't know if it happens in my lifetime or our lifetimes. I don't know if it's in this century or the next. But at some point, this thing's going to blow. It's all going to blow up. Mike Lee, who's a weasel and a snake. Never liked the guy. Smart guy. Very, very smart guy. But he's a weasel and a snake. Mike Lee, Senator Mike Lee, says that his committee, which is soon to be controlled by Democrats, will investigate Trump's business dealings and ties with Saudi Arabia and his personal motivations for not being tougher on Prince bin Salman. You a-hole. You absolute a-hole. That is just disturbing. That is very, very disturbing. Where were you, Mike Lee, to question the rotten Reverend Clinton? How about looking at her? 25% of the donations to her campaign in 2016 came from Saudi Arabia. Have you looked at the gift list? The gifts that were given to Michelle and Barack Hussein Obama, George W. Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush. How about the relationship between the Bush family, Mike Lee? Have you ever looked at the relationship between the Bush family? They're fucking business partners, Mike. Fucking business partners. Allowed on 9/11. Allowed on 9/11 to board planes. They were here. They were meeting with the Carlyle Group, a joint company owned with the Bushes on 9/11. Saudi intelligence deeply involved in 9/11. Mr. Lee. Hillary, 25% of the money on her campaign. She's up to her eyeballs in it. And you want to look at Trump. You make me sick. You son of a bitch. I'm getting angry. I'm getting very, very angry. These people make me absolutely sick, man. Dick Morris is the latest pundit to suggest that the rotten Reverend Clinton will run in 2020. Yeah, exactly. I said that a long time ago. Pretty obvious. Go back and look at her speech that she made the day after she lost the election, and she came out in her purple Chairman Mao suit, along with her hubby in his purple tie. That was the color of the resistance. They came out, and if you look at her speech, it was a non-concession concession speech. It was a speech saying the fight continues. Not the competition is over and I lost. No, 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 that's not what her speech was. It was this goes on. Then I observed over the next 6 months or so that she continued the fundraising just as much, if not more, than she ever did. She never gave me any indication at all that she was going to retreat back into private life. She's been doing everything but that. It became obvious to me, and about, I don't know, a year ago, I said, okay, at this point, I'm telling you guys, she is going to try to run again. Now, I don't think she'll be successful, but she is going to try to run again. I can assure you of that. I can assure you of that. She'll do it with a fake grassroots draft Hillary campaign. Unless she, of course, is indicted, which is a long shot. But if she is indicted, in which case, you'll see her admit herself into the hospital and go into sick old granny mode. She's got a plan. She's got a plan. Trust me, folks. We now have a new docudrama coming out about Monica Lewinsky. Monica Lewinsky. Remember her? Some of you weren't even alive when that happened. Monica Lewinsky, of course, was the young intern who had a relationship with Slick Willie in the Oral Office. So she's claiming in this documentary that Clinton, Slick Willie, wanted her to lie under oath about their affair. Yeah, that was, he was questioned about it. Lots of people were questioned about it. It was talked about a lot back when this happened. There were rumors were out there that Bill Clinton had, he lied under oath himself. He lied to a grand jury. And of course, lied to a grand jury, and he lost his law license as a result of that. But he also told her, because he told her, he said, at the time when Ken Starr was doing his investigation, he was looking at about 20 different women that had made accusations against Clinton. And they were focusing on the Paula Jones incident. The Paula Jones, which he ended up paying her $850,000 in a settlement in civil court. So they're investigating all of this, and Monica Lewinsky at the time is worried. So she and Slick Willie are having these late night, like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning conversations about what to do about everything that's happening with this investigation. And Slick Willie tells Monica Lewinsky, when she tells him, because I'm worried that I'm going to be subpoenaed by the grand jury, and oh boy, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? And he's telling her, okay, well, you know, all you have to do is deny that we're having this relationship. And he says you may not even have to worry about a subpoena if you will sign a federal affidavit, have your attorneys draw it up, sign a federal affidavit claiming that you and I have no relationship. That's what Clinton told Monica Lewinsky that she should do. Lie, basically, in an affidavit to Ken Starr. who was the special prosecutor. This was widely talked about, widely rumored, and Clinton denied every bit of it. And Lewinsky never commented on it because she never commented on anything. She rarely said anything. She had attorneys that did all the speaking for her, and they would deny everything. Clinton attorneys, by the way. Oh, yeah. So, yes, so we learned that the Slick Willie, we finally know from it's now coming out of the horse's mouth that, in fact, she was told by Slick Willie to lie. Absolutely. No doubt in my mind at that time, or anyone else's mind. We all knew. Okay? But now it's can go in the history books as fact. Ocasio-Cortez. Good old Marty Feldmanized Cortez is now saying that Pelosi can count on her for her support. Because if they don't go along with Pelosi and don't support Pelosi, the people who are opposed to her in the Democratic Party are farther to the right than she is. Oh my God. See, the good thing about, Ocasio-Cortez for the Democrats and Pelosi is that she is incredibly, incredibly stupid and naive. Both. Young, stupid, naive. She's the whole... that was easy. That was much easier than even I thought it would be. Oh, the Manhattan District Attorney has decided not to file charges against Harvey Weinstein. That's right. Harvey Weinstein's going to walk scot-free. Hey, he's got friends in high places and pretty low places as well. When you're friends with the Rotten Reverend Clinton, that's your get-out-of-jail-free card, because he knows a lot about the Clintons. And that's all he had to say, to walk. He says, well, yeah, I guess if you're going to drag me in court, I'm going to need some money to defend myself. I guess I'll write a tell-all book. I know a lot of things about a lot of people, including the Clintons. They were my best friends. Man, I could write a book about the Clintons. I know. I could sell millions of copies. I'm going to go ahead and get to work on that. Thanks. Go ahead and indict me. Next thing he knows, he gets a phone call from his attorney saying, hey, that little thing about writing a tell-all book on the Clintons worked. You're a free man. Now go rape some more actresses. Well done. That's how things work. That's how things work in the globalist New World Order. Welcome to the Purple Revolution, my friends. Welcome to it. Corey Lewandowski's new book, he states that Trump told him that he believed Obama knew about Spygate. Really? Is that a new revelation? I thought we already knew that. I thought that's why I started doing these videos. It's because on March the 6th, or 4th, either the 4th or the 6th of 2017, Trump came out and tweeted that Obama was spying on him. Thank you, Mr. Obvious.